And moving to the Port of Seattle, King 5 has also called the race for Ryan Calkins, who unseated John Creighton on the Port of Seattle Commission. Creighton is the longest-serving member currently on the board and held a lead on Election Day. But in the last few days, Calkins has taken the lead, and we now project he will win the seat. So with the elections behind us, Mr. Calkins joins us now with political reporter Natalie Brand to talk a little bit about what happened.
Yeah, thank you for being here. So my first question to you, what do you think made the difference in this race? How did you unseat a longtime incumbent?
Well, I think it was a combination of factors. We had a ton of grassroots support for our campaign. We had lots of volunteers who were willing to go out and do the kind of retail politics that you need to win a race like this that covers the entirety of King County. So we had folks waving signs for us, knocking on doors, hosting house parties. I spent a lot of time out in communities on weekends meeting with folks who didn't even realize that they could vote for the Port Commission. So,
and what were you saying that you would bring that Mr. Creighton didn't?
Well, I was really focusing on jobs, environment, and transparency in government. I felt like those things needed to be emphasized in this race.
Your background is interesting, small business, importing business, and then you also talked a lot about the environment. So at the Port of Seattle, how do you balance the two, business and the environment?
So I ran an import company that relied upon the Port of Seattle for its existence. And what we did was we brought in containers through the Port of Seattle of imported material that we were then a wholesaler for all the Pacific Northwest. And one of the things that I did when I took over the business was to conduct an audit on our sustainability as a business. And so my experience in greening our business, I think, directly translates to the support I can give to the port in its own efforts to be the greenest port in the country.
There is a lot of competition facing the Port of Seattle, specifically from Vancouver, Los Angeles. How do you increase business at the port?
Absolutely, that's a great question. There's a lot of internal things that we can do to make ourselves more competitive, but then we also, especially as commission members, need to go out and encourage the other stakeholders, the railroads, the trucking companies, other importers, to say, what can we do to all together win this business back for the city of Seattle and for our region? And in particular, we need to get Terminal 5, which is that big plot of land you see as you're crossing the West Seattle Bridge that has been vacant for a number of years now. We need to get that up and running again, and that will mean hundreds or thousands of good-paying family wage jobs for our region.
Up and running in what way? Deep water?
Yeah, we need to be able to bring in the big ships that are going to dominate Pacific shipping in the next dozen years or so. These are ships that we saw the Benjamin Franklin come in last year. These are ships that hold 15 to 18,000 container units essentially, and we need to have the berths that can hold them.
And moving to the airport, what is your vision for SeaTac in such a fast-growing region?
Well, we're lucky at the Port of Seattle to have the problem of too much demand at this point. And so as a commission, we need to figure out how to accommodate that demand so that, and I see SeaTac as sort of the front porch to our region. Many visitors to our region, that's their first impression of our area. And so I want to make sure that it's a great impression. And so that means getting passengers through there quickly, dealing with the traffic impacts around there, and also making sure that the communities around the airport aren't feeling the negative impacts of the airport without us helping to address them.
Hot button issue here. How do you feel about an arena here in the SoDo area?
Great question, and it's one that came up along the campaign trail quite a bit. The two criteria that I would use in making a decision on that are, does it preserve and create good jobs for our region, and will it bring the Sonics back? Right now, it's not on our plate at the Port of Seattle. It's sitting with the City of Seattle. They're going through a process. They've got a timeline in place, and of course we've got a new mayor coming in who's going to have an impact on that as well. If it comes back to the Port of Seattle, I'm one of 5 commissioners. I'm going to work very hard to convince my fellow commissioners to make the right decision on jobs and getting the Sonics back.
So is that a yes or no? I don't know where you stand. You do want to see an arena if it brings the Sonics back.
I want to see make sure that we use that opportunity to strengthen our economy locally. And if that arena is in SoDo, but it doesn't displace industrial jobs, then I would say yes to that for sure.
Thank you very much. You transition in January.
That's right. January 1st, we're seated.
Thanks, Ryan Calkins, for your time.
Thank you, Laura.